Colorectal cancer rates have been increasing in younger people for decades, even though overall cancer rates are declining. All this week's WBBM's Lisa Fielding takes a closer look at what could be the reason for this disturbing trend.
Everyone has a colon, but not everybody likes to talk about it.
When we're children, we celebrate the idea of being able to be potty trained and everything else, and then we forget about it, right? And then just kind of take everything for kind of autopilot, right?
Dr. Joaquin Estrada is chief of colorectal surgery and medical director of digestive health at Illinois Masonic Hospital.
Particularly when it comes to colon cancer. You know, it's one of these diseases that are a little bit closeted.
Over the years, his typical patient, people over 50, in for recommended screenings. But recently, he says, it's been a different story.
We're seeing more and more younger patients, whereas before it was like, wow, this patient's 33, this patient's 35, and it would just kind of be a one-off situation. We'd often chalk it up to a family history or something like that. But now we're seeing patients at those ages without family histories and sometimes even younger, and it's becoming more common.
Dr. Estrada says oftentimes it's a head scratcher.
And you start seeing more and more young patients come in, and you're like, wow, this is not what they taught us in medical school.
Colon cancer doesn't always show symptoms, and current guidelines beginning screenings at 45. But Dr. Estrada says too many people put off the critical test for a myriad of reasons.
If we catch it early enough, not only is it curable, but it's preventable.
Coming up tomorrow, a Chicago woman shares her story of a routine screening that turned into stage 3, which turned into a new mission to help others. Lisa Fielding, 1059 WBBM.
An alarming trend finds colorectal cancer cases among young people on the rise. WBBM's Lisa Fielding introduces us to a Chicago woman who received a shocking diagnosis after a routine screening.
Yeah, I've always been an active individual, healthy lifestyle growing up for the most part.
Colleen Dardis looks like the picture of health. Fit, an athlete, a runner. But when she turned 50, her world was rocked by a shocking diagnosis.
Discovered several polyps. One was considerably large. He had no real symptoms, no real history of cancer in my family.
Stage 3 colon cancer. Surgery was the only option. Right away, she blamed herself.
Were there side effects that I just missed, that I ignored?
Dardis is one of the thousands of adults younger than 50 diagnosed with colorectal cancer each year.
How at age 50, when I've led a pretty reasonably healthy lifestyle, I was shocked by the number of people that shared with me privately that they'd gone through something similar.
Doctors removed 6 inches of her colon and harvested 20 lymph nodes. 6 months of chemo, the moment she rang the bell. Now, a year post-surgery, she shares her own story to help others.
The more people understand how real this is, how it's the occurrences of colon cancer are going up.
She can now call herself a colon cancer survivor. Although she may never know the why of it all, she says she's grateful for her doctors at Illinois Masonic, who she says saved her life. Now she realizes her new role, her new purpose, to save others' lives through education and prevention.
If people are aware of that and are willing to get tested, they'll know sooner and be able to address it and face it and live beyond it.
Lisa Fielding, 1059 WBBM.
Coming up tomorrow, Lisa introduces us to a Highland Park man who had a similar diagnosis that changed the course of his life.
Nearly 18,000 people under the age of 50 will be diagnosed with colorectal cancer this year in the United States. All this week, WBBM's Lisa Fielding has been looking at the issue, and today we meet a Highland Park native who got the surprising diagnosis long before he ever started thinking about screenings.
I was 47 at the time, so before the 50-year-old colonoscopy.
Josh Rubenstein worked on television in Los Angeles for 20 years. But after a long broadcast career, he switched gears to take a job with the police department during the pandemic and civil unrest.
It was really one of the most exciting and tumultuous and difficult rides of my life. Incredible amount of stress all the time, as you can imagine.
Initially, he chalked it up to stress and ignored his symptoms for about 6 months.
I had symptoms that anybody that were really probably innocuous. And in fact, for a long time, just ignored it, as people my age and men in particular often do.
3 more months of tests and eventually a colonoscopy, news he never expected.
I woke up from the colonoscopy and he said, yeah, you have a tumor. Yeah, you have cancer. And it started this total different journey in my life.
That journey would include 6 rounds of chemo, then surgery. He then had a chance to start looking back.
First thing that I thought, what kind of things did I do that caused this? I actually got a genetic test when I was going through the whole thing, and it turns out it's just bad luck. There's no genetic marker that makes me predisposed to it.
He says his diagnosis and his journey will always be something that weighs heavily on his mind, but says he's learned so many important lessons from the experience.
Pay attention to what your body is saying, because your body is very smart in telling you what's wrong.
6 years cancer-free, he now shares his story with others, hoping to make a difference for patients and survivors like him.
It is an honor and it is a privilege to be able to share my story so that someone can say, oh, there is a light at the end of the tunnel for this, and I can fight this.
Lisa Fielding, News Radio 1059 WBBM. According to the American Cancer Society, if you were born between 1981 and 1996, you face twice the risk of colorectal cancer as compared to people born in 1950.
So there's a cohort of people that are growing up that seems to have had some kind of incidence or some kind of similar experience 30 to 40 years ago that caused this rise of incidence.
Dr. Mabaha Aklilu is a gastro-oncologist at Advocate Illinois Masonic Hospital. He says early onset cancer has become so common, there are clinics to find the why of it all.
About 10-15% of colorectal cancers may be related to genetics in general, but the vast majority are not genetic related, and there doesn't seem to be a different incidence of genetic cancers in these early onset cancers.
But some early theories, a change in our diet in the past 30 to 40 years.
Less fiber, more processed foods hit our diet in that age group. The fresh foods and vegetables disappeared. Wow. Processed foods became a norm because people were working, kids were, taking things out of a box to feed themselves. Yeah. And so I think the change in processed foods has also caused a change within that period of time.
So what are these foods doing to our gut?
These processed food energy drinks seem to have caused a change in the gut microbiome that causes a more pro-inflammatory condition that seems to predispose to a inflammatory cancer-driven state.
Obesity, lack of exercise, smoking, and drinking can also be factors, but the why of it all is still a work in progress.
I think what we're seeing, that why, there's a lot of hypotheses on what that why is. Okay. They're not sure exactly, but I think that the answer is not here yet, but people are actively looking for that why.
Coming up tomorrow, how you can be proactive in reducing your risks and how survivors are helping spread the word. Lisa Fielding, News Radio 1059 WBBM.
If you think no one in their 20s, 30s, or 40s gets colorectal cancer, you're wrong. The truth is that colorectal cancer is on the rise in young adults, and it has been for years. All this week, WBBM's Lisa Fielding has been looking into this disturbing trend, and today she talks to doctors and survivors about how education and prevention can make all the difference.
Colorectal cancer is one of the few diseases that can be cured if found early enough.
If we catch it early enough, not only is it curable, but it's preventable.
Dr. Joaquin Estrada with Illinois Masonic says knowing the signs and symptoms is the first step.
But things that are not normal are blood in the stool, pain, prolonged periods of constipation.
But oftentimes colon cancer shows no symptoms. So knowing your family history and making screening a priority can make all the difference.
So whether it's a colonoscopy or a stool-based test, and so that's really the key.
Survivor Josh Rubenstein says he's learned his own lessons from his journey with stage 3 colon cancer in his 40s.
Right, listen to your body. If that's the one thing you take away from this, whatever that symptom is, listen to it.
Colleen Dardis was diagnosed with her first screening. Another success story of survival. She looks back on the last year with gratitude and emotion.
It was better for me to focus on the positives, to spend time with people. Yeah. It's been a good year. We're starting to feel like my life is mine again.
Nobody knows for sure why colorectal cancer numbers are rising in young people. However, researchers are closer to finding out. More processed food, a low-fiber diet, a sedentary lifestyle are just a few theories. A new blood test that can detect colon cancer, just approved by the FDA, is a step forward. Dr. Estrada says technology and science have evolved, but says in the end, it's up to us to curb the numbers.
We all have a job to convince our family members, let your mom, your brothers, your sisters, your dad know that this is something that you need to get done, and it can be preventable and curable.
Lisa Fielding, News Radio 1059 WBBM.